The first scream rises from the depths of Khazad-dûm as a sound, not a voice. Metal tearing, stone cracking, air itself catching fire. Miners drop their tools, clutching their ears as a heatless wind rushes upward, carrying the smell of old ash and something older still. In the black beneath the mountains, wings of shadow unfurl, answering a call that has not been spoken since the First Age. Far to the east, in a fortress of smoke and iron, Sauron lifts his head, for he feels them wake. If this kind of alternate Middle-earth pulls you in, tap like and consider subscribing so you do not miss the next journey. Tell me in the comments which realm you would stand for if this darkness rose again. Gondor, Rohan, Lorien, or somewhere far more hidden. For the darkness that stirs now in the deep places of the world does not begin with a ring upon a finger, nor with a council in Rivendell, nor even with a grey wizard riding into the Shire. It begins with a crack in stone and a memory in fire. In the Third Age, the dwarves of Durin's folk delve too greedily and too deep. In one history, they wake a single Balrog, Durin's bane, and Khazad-dûm falls into shadow and silence. In this history, they wake him, and he is not alone. The pick that strikes the red-veined wall in the lowest deeps of Maiar bites through rock already weakened by ages of slow, patient pressure. A seam opens, hairline at first, then widening as if something on the other side presses back. Light bleeds through, not the gold of ore, but a dull, hateful glow, like banked coals stirred after a long sleep. "Master Balin," a miner whispers, dust drifting from his beard. The stone is breathing. The Dwarf Lord does not answer at once. He feels it too, a slow pulse beneath his boots, a tremor not of earth but of will. In the lantern light, his eyes narrow. He remembers old tales told in hushed voices, tales of Morgoth's demons driven into the deeps when the world was young. "Seal this tunnel," he orders. Now, they do not have time. The seam splits wide. A roar like 1,000 forges collapsing at once bursts from the wall. The lanterns go out, not extinguished by wind, but devoured, their flames yanked into the crack as though the darkness is hungry. Heat rolls over the dwarves, baking the sweat on their skin, and then they see it. A shape of shadow and flame, vast and coiled, presses against the opening like a creature forcing its way through a berth too small. Horns of fire, eyes like twin wounds in the dark, a whip that lashes out and carves molten scars in the stone. Durin's bane steps into the world of the Third Age. The dwarves flee, boots thundering down the tunnels, but the Balrog does not pursue. It turns instead to the crack, to the deeper darkness beyond. It raises its head and gives a cry that is not for prey, but for kin. Far below Maiar, in caverns no dwarf has ever seen, old fires stir. Deep beneath the Iron Mountains, under the roots of the Misty Mountains, in forgotten pits beneath the Sea of Rune, other shapes of shadow and flame twitch in their long sleep. For in the First Age, when Morgoth fell and his Balrogs fled, not all were slain. Some went down, down into the bones of the earth, hiding from the wrath of the Valar, smothering their own flames and wrapping themselves in stone. Ages passed. They dreamed of war. Now one of their number calls. The answer comes slowly at first. A tremor in a cavern roof, a crack of cooling basalt, a single coal flaring in a heap of ancient slag above. Maiar burns. Balin stands upon the great bridge of Khazad-dûm, his white beard singed, his armor blackened. Around him, dwarves stagger and cough in the smoke. The eastern hall behind them is a furnace, pillars glowing red, the air shimmering. From that inferno, the Balrog strides, its mane of fire licking the ceiling. "This way," Balin roars, voice hoarse. "To the west gate." He knows they cannot hold the halls. Already the upper levels are choked with fumes, the great doors of Durin twisted and half-melted. The Balrog is not merely a beast of flame. It is a will, a hatred that seeps into the stone, turning it against the hands that carved it. As the dwarves retreat, the mountain groans. Stairs crack, arches slump. A statue of Durin the Deathless topples, its face sheared away by a lash of living fire. "Father!" a young dwarf cries, reaching out for a hand that is suddenly not there. The hand lies on the stone, still clutching an axe that will never rise again. Balin does not look back. He cannot. His duty is to the living. Yet in his heart, something breaks. Far above, on the western slopes of the Misty Mountains, the Elves of Lorien feel a shudder under their Malin roots. The Lady Galadriel stands at the edge of her realm, her white garments catching the starlight, and looks toward the north. Beside her, Celeborn frowns. "An earthquake?" "No," she says softly. "An awakening." In the east, in Dol Guldur, a figure cloaked in shadow and malice pauses in his pacing. The necromancer, whom the wise will soon name Sauron openly, feels the tremor in the fabric of Arda. His unseen eyes narrow. "Impossible," he murmurs, though there is no one to hear. They are bound or broken. He stretches his will, probing the dark places beneath the world. There, like coals in ash, he feels them. Old, kindred spirits, though they were never his to command. Servants of Morgoth, not of Sauron. Yet they are of the same fire, the same corruption of the flame imperishable. He smiles. In Mordor, where his power is still growing, towers of black stone ring the plateau of Gorgoroth. Orcs toil, hauling blocks, hammering iron. The eye is not yet unveiled, but its presence is already felt in the whip cracks and the fear. Now that fear deepens, the ground shakes, cracks spider across the ashen plain. From the fissures, smoke rises, tinged not with the red of Orodruin, but with a deeper, older gloom. Orcs drop their tools, snarling and hissing. "What is that smell?" one mutters. It is like burned hair and old blood, and something else, something that makes even an orc's heart beat faster. Above Baradur's half-built towers, Sauron's thought reaches outward and downward. He sends not words, but impressions. War, dominion, the stamping of many feet, the fall of tall towers. He offers alliance, not command. He is not fool enough to try to bind a Balrog to his direct will. He remembers dimly the days when he himself was but a lieutenant in a greater dark. In the deeps under the Ash Mountains, a long-buried cavern splits. A shape uncoils, shedding layers of stone like a snake its old skin. Wings of shadow spread, scraping the ceiling. Fire runs along a whip that has never forgotten the taste of elven blood. One Balrog answers, then another, far to the north, and another, beneath the sea of Rhûn, rising through boiling water that flashes to steam around its form. The world does not know it yet, but the Third Age has changed. In the Shire, under a blue sky and among green hills, a hobbit named Frodo Baggins sits in front of Bag End, smoking quietly. A faint tremor passes under his bare feet. He frowns, then shrugs. Perhaps it is thunder, though the sky is clear. He has no ring upon his finger. It lies still in a dark place, lost. Gollum has not yet found it. Bilbo has not yet taken it. Gandalf has not yet suspected. Yet already, the game is altered. In Rivendell, Elrond half-elven stands in the Hall of Fire, listening to an elf minstrel sing of Gondolin's fall. The notes twist and soar, painting in sound the image of Balrogs upon the walls, of golden towers collapsing, of a city in flame. The floor shivers under his feet. The song falters. Harp strings vibrate without touch. The flames in the great hearth lean suddenly, as if drawn toward some unseen chasm. Elrond's hand tightens on the arm of his chair. "Again," he murmurs, for this is not the first tremor. In recent months, there have been whispers of quakes in the north, of strange fires under the Iron Hills, of beasts fleeing south in great herds. He knows the tales of the First Age. He knows what sleeps in the dark. A messenger bursts into the hall, breathless, his cloak stained with dust. "My lord," he gasps. "Word from Khazad-dûm. Fire in the deeps. They say a demon of the ancient world has woken, Durin's bane." The name hangs in the air like smoke. Elrond's gaze goes distant. He sees not the messenger, but another time, another hall, another fire. He sees Eärendil, his father, speaking of Thangorodrim and the hosts of Balrogs, of Glorfindel's fall and the eagle's rescue. "One," Elrond says slowly, "or more." The messenger swallows. They are not certain. The tunnels are changing. Some say the mountain itself moves. Some speak of voices in the stone. Elrond dismisses him with a nod and turns to the shadows at the edge of the hall. "Gandalf." The grey wizard steps forward, staff in hand, eyebrows bristling. He has been there all along, listening, thinking. "I felt it," he says, "deep and far. If Durin's bane wakes, the world will tremble. If more of its kind rise, he does not finish. He does not need to." "What will you do?" Elrond asks. Gandalf's eyes, usually kind, are hard now. "I will go to Moria." In Lothlorien, Galadriel retreats to her mirror. The silver basin stands among the trees, water still. She pours from a ewer, the liquid catching the light, and bends over it. "Show me the deeps," she whispers. "Show me what stirs beneath the world." The water clouds, then clears. She sees tunnels, black and twisting. She sees fire running in veins through the rock like blood. She sees a shape of shadow and flame striding along a subterranean chasm, its whips cracking, its voice a roar that shakes stalactites from the ceiling. Then the vision shifts, plunging deeper, beyond even the dwarves' reach. There she sees others, many others, some still wrapped in stone, some half emerged, some already moving. A host of Balrogs, fewer than in the elder days, but enough. They are not marching yet. They are listening. Galadriel's hand trembles. Water spills over the edge of the basin, darkening the earth. Celeborn catches her arm. "What did you see?" "A memory," she says, "and a warning." In the Iron Hills, Dain Ironfoot feels the ground quake under his fortress. He sends scouts into the lower mines. They return with tales of tunnels warped, of heat where there should be cold, of veins of ore turned to glass. "We have delved these halls for generations," one miner says, eyes wide. "Now they do not know us. The stone has new paths." Dain thinks of Moria, of Durin's folk. He thinks of the old alliance between elves and dwarves, long frayed. Pride wars with prudence. "Send a messenger to Thranduil," he says at last. "Tell the Elf King that the earth under both our feet is restless. We may need to stand together." The words taste bitter, but he speaks them. In Dol Guldur, Sauron's mind reaches deep, touching the nearest of the newly awakened Balrogs. It is like pressing his hand against a furnace. The contact burns, but he endures. He sends impressions, elves fleeing, men screaming, towers falling. He offers a world in which fire and shadow rule, in which the servants of the ancient dark stride openly once more. The Balrogs' response is not in words. It is a surge of contempt, of remembered chains, of of a lord long lost. It remembers Morgoth. It does not know this lesser shadow, yet it is hungry. It sends back its own images. Cities burning, forests turned to ash, rivers boiling. It does not care whose banners fall, so long as something falls. Sauron withdraws, thoughtful. He cannot command them. He can, perhaps, guide them, turn their hunger where it serves him, but he must move quickly before they choose their own paths. He turns his attention west. Moria is a wound now, bleeding fire and smoke. The dwarves who escape flee in scattered bands, some to the west gate, some to the east. Many do not escape at all. On the Dimril Dale, under a grey sky, Balin leads a ragged group out onto the snow. Behind them, the doors of Khazad-dûm glow red, heat shimmering in the cold air. A sound like a furnace's breath sighs from within. Balin turns once, looking back at the home of his fathers. His eyes sting, not from smoke, but from grief. "We will return," he says, though he does not know if it is true. "We are Durin's folk. We do not abandon our halls forever." A rumble answers him, low and mocking. The mountain shifts. A crack runs up the cliff face above the gate, widening, spilling small stones. For a heartbeat, Balin thinks he sees something move behind the rock, a shadow within the mountain itself. "Go," he tells his people. "Go now." They trudge eastward into a world that is already changing around them. In the vales of Anduin, Bjorn's descendants watch as bears grow restless, pacing and growling at shadows. In Fangorn, Treebeard feels roots twitch deep underground, as if something is turning in its sleep. In the grey mountains, dragons stir uneasily, for they sense a rival fire. Gandalf reaches the west gate of Moria at dusk. The lake before it is steaming, thin tendrils of vapour rising from its surface. The holly trees around the gate are withered, their leaves brown and curling. He lays his hand upon the stone, feeling the heat through it. The doors are shut, the inscription of Ithildin faint. He speaks the word of opening, but the doors do not move. "Stubborn," he mutters, or afraid. He circles the lake, staff tapping. The water bubbles near the shore, as if something beneath it breathes. He feels, faintly, a presence in the depths, old and cold and coiled. "This place is too crowded with old things," he says under his breath. "I have come too late." He does not try to force an entry, not alone, not now. Instead, he turns away, cloak swirling, and makes for Lorien. He must speak with Galadriel. Far to the south, in Gondor, Denethor, son of Ecthelion, sits in the White Tower, the weight of stewardship heavy on his shoulders. He has felt the tremors too, though they are faint by the time they reach Minas Tirith. He has heard rumours from Rohan of horses panicking, of men seeing flames on distant mountaintops. He stands before a covered stone, his hand on the cloth that hides it. The Palantir calls to him. He has used it before, cautiously. Through it, he has seen ships on the sea, armies on the march, the growing shadow in the east. Now he wonders what it would show him beneath the earth. His fingers tighten on the cloth. He hesitates. Then he lets his hand fall. Not yet. For all his pride, Denethor is not yet the man he will become. His caution holds. For now. In Rohan, Theoden is still strong. He rides the plains with his men, laughing in the wind. Yet even he feels it when the ground shivers under his horse's hooves. "Earthquake," one rider says. "Perhaps," Theoden answers, but his gaze goes east toward the shadow on the horizon that has been growing. Slowly, year by year. The world is full of small uneases, like animals sensing a storm before the first drop of rain. The first great storm breaks in the north. under the Iron Mountains, a Balrog bursts from the side of a peak in a shower of rock and flame. Snow flashes to steam. A glacier cracks, sending ice cliffs crashing into the valley below. Dwarven watchtowers crumble, their garrisons screaming as fire sweeps over them. From the east, a host of orcs surges forward, eyes gleaming in the Balrogs' reflected fire. They had been gathering for years, a slow, secret mustering under Sauron's distant will. Now they have a banner of living flame to follow. The iron hills burn. Dain rallies his warriors, axes ringing, horns sounding. For a time, they hold. Dwarves are stubborn, and their halls are strong. They choke tunnels with the bodies of orcs. They collapse passages. They pour water upon the encroaching fire. But the Balrog is not a dragon to be slain with a lucky arrow. It is a fragment of primordial terror, a piece of the world's making turned against its maker. It strides through molten stone as if through rain. Its whip lashes, shattering shields. Its sword of fire cuts through mail and beard alike. In a narrow hall, Dain faces it. He is not a hero of legend. He's a practical dwarf, hardened by years of toil and war. He knows he cannot win. Yet he stands. For Durin, he roars, charging. The Balrog's laugh is a sound like collapsing caverns. When the Iron Hills fall, the news spreads slowly. Refugees stagger south, some making it to Dale and Erebor, bringing tales of fire walking and mountains weeping lava. Thorin, not yet Oakenshield, listens, his brows drawn. Balrog, he says. In the north? So they say, the survivor answers, and the orcs with it, like maggots on a carcass. Thorin looks to his grandfather Thror, whose eyes glitter with a dangerous light. Moria has fallen, Thror says. Now the Iron Hills. Our halls are taken, one by one. Will we cower in Erebor like moles in a hole? He speaks of reclaiming Khazad-dûm, of marching with all their strength to drive out the demon. The old pride burns in him, bright and blinding. Thorin feels it too, that pull of ancient glory. Yet something in him is wary. Grandfather, he says carefully, we do not know how many there are. If more of these demons rise, Thror slams his fist on the table. We are dwarves. We do not yield to fear. In this world, his obsession with Moria will be even more fatal. In Lorien, Gandalf and Galadriel speak beneath the golden boughs. They are rising, she says, not just Durin's bane. I have seen at least 4, perhaps more. 4 Balrogs, Gandalf murmurs. In the First Age there were many, and the world nearly broke under their feet. Now, with men untried and elves diminished, he trails off. They will not serve Sauron as they served Morgoth, Galadriel says. They remember a greater master. They will not bend easily to a lesser. Perhaps, Gandalf says, but they will not oppose him either. Their desires run in the same channel. Wherever they go, they will burn what he would see burned. He paces, staff tapping the soft earth. We must warn all the free peoples, he says. Gondor, Rohan, the Shire. The Shire. Galadriel's brows rise. What can hobbits do against Balrogs? Gandalf smiles, a little sadly. Perhaps nothing, perhaps everything. I do not know yet. But I will not leave any stone unturned. He thinks of the ring, lost yet not lost. He has begun to suspect that Gollum's trinket was more than it seemed. If the Balrogs rise, Sauron will hasten his search. The ring will not remain hidden forever. In the east, beneath the Sea of Rhûn, a Balrog forces its way up through the lake bed. Water boils, sending up pillars of steam visible for miles. Fish float to the surface, white-bellied and dead. The men of Rhûn, who have long worshipped dark powers in secret, fall to their knees on the shore, crying out in fear and awe. They name the Balrog a god. It strides onto the land, steam pouring from its form as water hisses off its heated skin. Its shadow stretches long over the plains. Sauron feels it and smiles. He sends emissaries, black Númenóreans and wraiths, cloaked in fair-seeming flesh, to whisper in the ears of the men of Rhûn. They speak of alliance, of shared purpose, of old gods returning. They bind the fear of the Balrog to the will of the Dark Lord. Soon, an army marches west from Rhûn, banners fluttering, drums pounding. At its head, like a moving volcano, walks the Balrog. The first great alliance of the Third Age is not of elves and men, but of men and demon. In Gondor, Denethor receives reports of strange fires in the east, of red glows on the horizon at night. He spreads maps on his table, frowning. If Rhûn marches, he says to his captains, they will strike at our eastern borders first, Ithilien perhaps, or they may swing north to threaten Dale and Erebor. We cannot guard every road. Rohan will stand with us, one captain says. Rohan has its own worries, Denethor replies. The ground shakes there too. And we have heard whispers of wolves in the Eastfold, of trees moving in Fangorn. The world is restless. He looks toward the covered palantir again. This time, he pulls the cloth away. The stone glows softly, like a deep well catching starlight. Denethor lays his hands upon it and lets his mind sink. He sees the east first, as he wills. He sees the plains of Rhûn, the marching host, the black banners, the Balrog like a walking mountain of fire. Its shadow falls across his vision, and for a moment he feels heat like a forge against his face. He grits his teeth and looks away, forcing his sight south. He sees Mordor, its mountains smoking, its plains crawling with orcs. He sees Barad-dûr rising, its dark spires reaching for the sky. He feels, faintly, another presence in the stone, a will like his own, but colder, more patient. Sauron. Denethor jerks back, breaking the contact. Sweat stands on his brow. He has seen enough. Prepare the beacons, he says. If Rohan will ride, we will need them. And send word to Dol Amroth. The Sea Lords must be ready. In Rohan, Theoden receives Gondor's message with a thoughtful frown. He has not yet fallen under Graemus' poison. His mind is clear. If Gondor calls, we will answer, he says. But we must also guard our own land. Strange things move in the Eastfold, and the Entwash has risen twice this year without rain. The very rivers seem uneasy. He sends Eomer to patrol the eastern borders, to watch for any sign of this rumoured Balrog-led host from Rhûn. Eomer rides with his Eord, the wind in his hair, the grass a blur beneath his horse's hooves. He feels the joy of speed. The old song of Rohan in his blood. Then the ground shakes. Horses stumble, men curse. Ahead, on the horizon, a red glow blooms, steady and unnatural. Eomer reins in, eyes narrowing. Fire, one rider says. Not like any fire I have seen, Eomer answers. They ride closer, cautiously. They do not go far enough to see the Balrog itself, striding west with its army. But they see the sky above it, stained red even at noon. They see birds fleeing, flocks of them, their cries harsh and panicked. Eomer turns his horse. We must warn the king, he says. In the Shire, the tremors are small, the distant glows faint. Hobbits feel them as unsettled dreams, as a vague sense that something is wrong beyond the borders they never cross. Bilbo Baggins, older now, sits by his fire, the ring in his pocket. He fingers it absently, feeling its cool weight. He has been restless of late. He has dreams of fire in mountains, of shadows with whips, of a great eye that he cannot quite see. He tells himself it is nothing. He is, after all, just a hobbit. Gandalf comes to Bag End sooner in this world. He knocks at the round door, staff thudding, hat askew. Bilbo lets him in, surprised, but pleased. Gandalf, to what do I owe this visit? No fireworks this time, I hope. The neighbours still talk about the last lot. Gandalf smiles, but there is a strain in it. I am here for more than fireworks, Bilbo, he says. Tell me again about that ring you found. Bilbo hesitates, hand in his pocket. It is just a trinket, he says. Makes me invisible, very handy for avoiding Sackville Bagginses. Gandalf's eyes flick to the pocket. And you never lose it? Never misplace it? Bilbo laughs, a little too loudly. No, I always know where it is. Gandalf's gaze sharpens. The world is changing, Bilbo, he says. Old powers are waking. If that ring is what I fear it may be. He trails off. Bilbo feels a sudden surge of possessiveness. His hand closes tight around the ring. It is mine, he says, more sharply than he intended. Gandalf's face hardens. I am not here to steal from you, he says quietly. I am here to protect you, and more than you. They argue, as they did in the other history, but the rising of the Balrogs lends a new urgency to Gandalf's fears. He leaves Bag End with more questions than answers, but with a resolve that is steel. He will find the truth of the ring. He must. For if Sauron gains both Balrogs and ring, the world will not endure. In the north, the second great shock comes. Thror, against the counsel of his grandson and his kin, leads a small company of dwarves to Moria. He is driven by pride and by a sense of doom. He cannot bear the thought of Durin's halls in the hands of a demon. They reach the east gate under a black sky. The air is hot, though it is winter. The stars are dim behind a haze of smoke. The gate is twisted, half melted. The symbols of Durin are blackened and cracked. Thror stands before it, his white beard stirring in the furnace breath that seeps from within. This is our home, he says. We will reclaim it or die. He steps forward. From the darkness of the gate, a voice speaks. It is not the Balrogs. It is cold and hissing, like a knife on stone. Die, then, it says. Orcs pour out, swarming over the rocks, shrieking. They are many, more than Thror expected. They have had time to breed in the heat of Moriah's new furnaces. The dwarves fight bravely. They are cut down one by one. Thror himself is taken alive, dragged into the dark. His last sight of the sky is a smear of red through smoke. In the deeps, Durin's Bane watches. It has no interest in this old dwarf's pride. It is concerned with greater things, with the shifting of the earth, with the calls of its kin, with the faint, irritating tug of Sauron's will from the east. Yet it allows the Orciftine Azog to have his sport. When Thror's head is cast out later, branded with the mark of Azog, the dwarves' grief and rage are great. The war of the dwarves and orcs begins, as in the other history. But now, every battle fought near deep places has another shadow upon it. In the Battle of Azanul-Bizar, where the dwarves finally break the orcs before the gates of Moria, the ground shakes more violently than ever. As axes and swords clash, as blood soaks the snow, a fissure opens in the valley floor. For a moment, all fighting ceases. From the crack, heat rises. A red glow pulses. Another one. A dwarf whispers, but no Balrog emerges. Not yet. It is as if the earth itself only stretched in its sleep. The dwarves win the day, but they do not enter Moria. The heat at the gate is too great. The very air burns in their lungs. Thorin, his face streaked with blood and ash, stands looking at the dark door. Not yet. he says. Not like this. He leaves a curse upon Azog and upon the Balrog within, and turns away. The world moves on. Years pass. The Balrogs do not stride openly across Middle-earth in great hosts. They are few, and they are patient in their own terrible way. They reshape their lairs, turning mountains into furnaces, lakes into cauldrons, caverns into cathedrals of fire. The Balrog under the Iron Mountains sends rivers of lava down into the plains, turning fertile fields into black glass. The men who survive flee west or south, carrying stories of a fire demon that walks like a god. The Balrog of Rohan, now worshipped as a war spirit, allows its human followers to build altars near its lair. It does not care for their prayers, but their sacrifices amuse it. Durin's spawn broods in Moria, its mind half in the present, half in memories of Thangorodrim and the War of Wrath. It feels the faint, constant pull of Sauron, like a gnat buzzing at the edge of its awareness. It ignores him, for now. Sauron, for his part, is content to let the Balrogs sow fear and chaos. He focuses on his ring. Gollum finds it at last, in the cold dark under the misty mountains. He clutches it, whispers to it, loves and hates it. He is changed by it, twisted. Yet even in his cave, he feels the tremors. Rocks fall from the ceiling. Underground streams change course. Once, a distant roar shakes his little world, and he cowers, clutching the ring to his chest. "Fire!" he hisses. Fire in the deep. Nasty, nasty. When Bilbo, lost and frightened, stumbles into Gollum's domain, the riddle game plays out much as before. The ring slips onto Bilbo's finger. He vanishes, he escapes. But the tunnels he flees through are not the same. Some passages are collapsed, others warped by heat. He feels hot air in places where there should be cold. Once, he sees a faint red glow far down a side tunnel and hears a distant echoing crack like a whip. He shivers and hurries on. When he emerges into the sunlight, gasping, he does not know that he has passed, not far below, a sleeping Balrog. Time moves. Bilbo returns to the Shire with the ring. Years pass. Gandalf's suspicions grow. The necromancer is revealed as Sauron and driven from Dol Guldur, though not destroyed. He returns to Mordor. Barad-dûr rises fully. The eye opens. Through it, Sauron watches the world. He sees the Balrogs' lairs. He sees the Iron Mountains burning, Rhunt's plains blackening, Moria smoking. He cannot command them, but he can time his own moves to theirs. When he sends his forces to retake Dol Guldur, he does so as Durin's barn stirs, sending a plume of smoke up through the peak of Caradhras. The wise are forced to split their attention, some turning north to watch Moria, others south to guard the Greenwood. The Greenwood darkens faster in this world. The spiders grow bolder. The necromancer's former fortress becomes a focal point of fear again, even as Sauron's main strength is in Mordor. The Council of Elrond, when it comes, is more crowded and more desperate. Representatives from all the free peoples gather, elves of Rivendell and Lorien, dwarves from Erebor and the Blue Mountains, men of Gondor and Rohan, even a Beorning or two. The hobbits are there as well. Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin. Boromir comes with his dream of Isildur's bane. Aragorn comes with the shards of Narsil. Legolas brings news of Gollum's escape. They speak of the ring, of the need to destroy it. They speak of Sauron's armies, of Mordor's strength. Then Elrond raises another subject. "And there is this," he says, "the Balrogs." A murmur runs through the hall. "Durin's bane in Moria," Glóin says grimly. "Another in the Iron Mountains, one in the east." and there are rumors of a fourth beneath the Sea of Rhûn, stirring the waters. At least 4, Gandalf says. Perhaps more, in places we do not know. They are not Sauron's servants, not as the Nazgûl are, but their rising has given him cover and chaos. If they march, they could break any host we muster. Boromir frowns. Then why not seek their aid? If they hate Sauron's rule, could we not turn them against him? Gandalf looks at him sharply. You do not know what you suggest, he says. They are of the same corruption as Sauron. They served Morgoth, who was his master. They do not hate Sauron's rule. They despise all rule but their own, and they care nothing for elf or man. Aragorn speaks, his voice quiet but firm. I have seen the ruins in the north, he says. Villages burned not by orcs, but by fire that walked. Fields turned to glass. There is no bargaining with that. Legolas shivers, remembering tales of Gondolin. What then? He asks. We fight Sauron and leave the Balrogs to burn what they will. We cannot fight them all at once, Elrond says. We must strike at the head of the serpent. If Sauron falls, the Balrogs may retreat again into the deeps. Or they may not. But without Sauron, they will be fewer and more scattered foes. It is a grim calculation. Frodo listens, heart pounding. He had thought his task impossible enough, to carry the ring into Mordor, to cast it into the fire. Now he hears of demons of flame and shadow that can shatter mountains. He feels very small. Later, in the courtyard, he speaks quietly with Gandalf. Do you think, he asks, that if we destroy the ring, the Balrogs will go away? Gandalf looks up at the sky, where clouds drift peacefully over Rivendell. I do not know, he says. The world was broken once, when Morgoth fell. The Valar remade it as best they could. The Balrogs are remnants of that older breaking. Perhaps they are bound to Sauron's fate. Perhaps not. He looks down at Frodo, and his eyes are kind again. But we cannot let fear of what we do not know stop us from doing what we must. The Fellowship is formed, as in the other history. Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Aragorn, Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli, Boromir. Yet their path is altered. They do not go through Moria. Gandalf will not risk Durin's Bane and whatever else lurks now in the deeps. The smoke from Caradhras is too thick, the tremors too frequent. They attempt the pass of Caradhras first, as before. The snowstorm comes, unnatural and deadly. But this time, as they struggle through the drifts, they hear far below a different sound, a roar, deep and resonant, like a bell tolling in the bones of the mountain. The snow shakes loose in sheets. An avalanche crashes down, nearly burying them. They dig out, gasping, soaked and freezing. This is not just weather, Aragorn says, teeth chattering. The mountain resents us. Gimli's face is pale beneath his beard. It is him, he says, Durin's Bane. He stirs in his sleep, and the mountain answers. Gandalf looks at the red-tinged clouds above the peak. We go back, he says. We will try another way. They turn south, skirting Moria at a distance. They pass near Lorien sooner, and Galadriel offers them shelter. The Golden Wood is a refuge, a place where the tremors are felt only faintly, as if the roots of the Malorns drink in some of the earth's fear. In the mirror, Galadriel shows Frodo not only the eye of Sauron, but also a vision of a Balrog striding across a plain, its shadow falling over a city of men. The people flee, their screams silent in the mirror's surface. If you fail, she says, this may come to pass. If Sauron triumphs, he will not be content with armies of orcs and men. He will seek to bind even these ancient fires to his will. And if he succeeds, she does not finish. Frodo grips the ring tighter. On the other side of the mountains, while the Fellowship rests in Lorien, the Balrog of Rhûn reaches the borders of Gondor. It comes not alone. Around it marches an army of Easterlings, their armor gleaming, their faces painted with symbols of fire. Behind them, chariots roll, drawn by horses with eyes wide and white. They cross the river at the Old Ford, where once the Númenóreans built a watchtower. The tower is a ruin now. The Balrog pauses beside it, almost curious. It remembers dimly the ships of Westernesse that sailed against Morgoth. It smashes the tower with one blow, sending stones flying. Gondor's eastern garrisons fall back, harrying the enemy where they can, but they cannot stand before the Balrog. Arrows melt in the air around it. Siege engines burst into flame. Denethor watches from the walls of Minas Tirith as the red glow grows in the east. "We cannot hold the Pelennor if that thing reaches us," he says. Faramir, standing beside him, nods. "We must meet it in Ithilien. In the woods, perhaps we can slow it. The trees may hinder it. Trees burn," Denethor says. Boromir, not yet gone to Rivendell in this timeline, clenches his fists. "Give me leave, father," he says. "I will ride with the vanguard. We will show this demon the strength of Gondor." Denethor looks at his eldest son, pride and fear warring in his eyes. "You may go," he says, "but do not seek glory and fire. Seek survival. The battle in Ithilien is a nightmare of light and shadow." Gondor's rangers use the trees, ambushing the Easterlings, cutting down their captains. Arrows whisper from the leaves, spears thrust from behind rocks. For a time, the men of Rhûn falter. Then the Balrog enters the wood. Flame runs up the trunks in seconds. Leaves ignite. Birds fall from the sky, their wings on fire. The air becomes a furnace. Boromir leads a charge, horns sounding, his men shouting. They clash with the Easterlings in a clearing, swords ringing. The heat presses on them, stealing their breath. The Balrog strides into the clearing. For a moment, time slows. Boromir looks up, sweat streaming down his face, hair plastered to his forehead. The Balrog towers above him, its eyes like pits of molten gold. "Back!" Boromir roars. "Fall back!" He knows bravery will not stop this. They retreat in good order, shields raised against the heat. Arrows from the trees above continue to harry the Easterlings. Faramir's voice calls commands, calm even in the chaos. "Draw it west," he shouts. "Toward the river. It will not like the water." They fight a running battle, always just out of the Balrog's reach, using the terrain, using every trick of rangercraft. At the Anduin's edge, they turn. Faramir has laid a trap, barrels of oil hidden under the low water, ropes ready to pull them. As the Easterlings charge across the shallows, the rangers ignite the oil. Fire blooms on the river's surface. For a moment, the Balrog pauses, watching the flames with something like amusement. It steps into the water, steam explodes around it. The river boils. Men scream as the scalding water touches them. The Balrog does not stop. It wades through the fire and steam, each step sending up great clouds. Its body glows brighter as if the water only feeds its heat. Boromir feels despair like a weight on his shoulders. "We cannot stop it," he says. Faramir looks at the burning river, at the demons striding through it. "No," he says, "but we can slow it. Every hour we buy is an hour for Father to strengthen the city, for Rohan to answer the call, for whatever else may come." They fight on, not to win, but to delay. In Lorien, as the Fellowship prepares to leave, Galadriel speaks quietly to Aragorn. "The world will test you more harshly than it did your forefathers," she says. Not only must you face Sauron, but these old fires. If you claim the throne of Gondor, you will inherit a land scorched on more than one front. Aragorn nods, his face grave. I do not seek the crown for its own sake, he says, only to stand where I must, when I must. He looks east, as if he could see through the golden wood to the burning of Ithilien. Gondar will need more than a king, he says. It will need hope. The Fellowship leaves Lorien, travelling down the Anduin. The river is swollen, warmer than it should be. They pass floating logs charred at one end, birds with singed feathers. Once, at night, they see a distant red glow on the eastern horizon. Sam shivers. Do you think that is one of them? He asks Frodo. The fire demons. Frodo does not answer. He's watching the ring which lies on his palm, gleaming faintly in the starlight. At Amon Hen, the breaking of the Fellowship plays out with small but significant differences. Boromir, haunted by his failure to stop the Balrog in Ithilien, is even more desperate. He presses Frodo harder, his words edged with fear as well as temptation. With this ring, he says, we could command even the Balrogs. Imagine it, Frodo. Fire turned against fire. We could drive them back into the deep. Gondor could be a bulwark for all. Frodo shakes his head, tears in his eyes. It is Sauron's ring, he says. It will not obey us. It will betray us. Boromir's hand closes on his hilt. He does not strike Frodo, but his movement is enough. Frodo slips the ring on and vanishes. The Nazgul come as before on their fell beasts. Orcs attack. Boromir dies defending Merry and Pippin, pierced by arrows, his horns split. Yet, as he falls, he hears faintly a distant roar. Like a furnace door opening, the Balrog of Rohan has reached the Pelennor. Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli choose to follow Frodo's path toward Mordor, as before. Merry and Pippin are taken by orcs, as before. Gandalf, after falling with the Balrog of Moria in the other history, does not do so here. He has not entered Moria. He is still with the Fellowship when it breaks. He stands on Amon Hen, staff raised, light blazing from his hand as he drives off the Nazgul. When the immediate danger passes, he turns to Aragorn. You must follow Frodo, he says. He will need you. I will go to Minas Tirith. They face more than orcs and men. He looks east, his face lined with worry. There is a Balrog on the Pelennor. The ride of Gandalf to Minas Tirith is more urgent, more desperate. He does not have time to rescue Theoden from Saruman's shadow first. Rohan must fend for itself for a time. Saruman, for his part, has watched the rising of the Balrogs with a mixture of fear and envy. He has long coveted Sauron's power, studying the arts of ring-making, delving into forbidden lore. Now he sees another path to greatness. If I could bind one of them, he muses in Orthanc, pacing. If I could harness that fire. He sends orcs and men to probe the deeps beneath Isengard, to seek any sign of old fire. They find only hot springs and strange stones. The Balrogs are elsewhere. Saruman grows more impatient. His treachery against Rohan and Gondor accelerates. He sends his forces to ravage the Westfold sooner, hoping to seize Helm's Deep before Rohan can muster. Yet, without Gandalf's timely intervention, Theoden's fall to despair is slower. Grimace whispers, "Work." But there is no wizard at the gate to break the spell. Eomer is exiled, as before, but his return is delayed. Rohan stands on a knife edge, threatened by Saruman from the west and by distant tremors from the east. In Gondor, the siege of Minas Tirith begins with a horror the city has never seen. The Balrog of Rohan stands on the Pelennor, its shadow touching the walls. Around it, siege towers roll, Catapults hurl stones and burning oil. The sky is black with smoke and with the wings of Nazgul. Gondor's soldiers, hardened though they are, falter at the sight of the demon. Some drop their spears. Others whisper prayers to the Valar. Denethor stands upon the wall, his face pale but set. "Hold!" he cries. "Remember Numenor! Remember your fathers!" The first assault crashes against the Ramus Ekor, the outer wall. The Balrog strides forward, its sword of fire sweeping. Stone glows, cracks, melts. In minutes, a breach gapes, wide enough for 10 men to march through abreast. The defenders fall back to the city walls. Gandalf arrives at dawn, riding Shadowfax, white against the smoke. He passes through the gate as it closes behind him, the enemy's vanguard only minutes away. He goes first to Denethor. "There is little time," he says. "You face not only Sauron's hosts, but an ancient terror. You must not despair." Denethor's eyes are hollow. "I have seen it," he says. "In the stone. I have seen the fire that walks. I have seen the ships of the Corsairs. I have seen Rohan's fields burning." He laughs, a short, bitter sound. "What hope have we, Gandalf? Even if Rohan comes, can horses trample fire?" Gandalf grips his arm. "Hope is not certainty," he says. "It is the choice to stand when standing seems useless. Send the beacons, call for Rohan. Trust that others will play their part." Denethor hesitates. In another history, despair would take him fully, driving him to madness and self-destruction. Here, the added weight of the Balrogs presses harder, yet something in him, some last thread of Númenórean steel, holds. He nods. "The beacons will be lit," he says. "But if we fall, know that I did not yield without thought." The beacons flare across the White Mountains, fire answering fire. In Rohan, Theoden sees them from his hall, his face lined, his hair more grey than gold now. "Gondor calls for aid," he says. Grima whispers poison in his ear, speaking of futility, of old alliances that mean nothing now. Yet Theoden remembers younger days, riding with Ecthelion, laughing under a clear sky. "We will answer," he says, voice firm. "Rohan will ride." Without Gandalf to free him, the decision is slower, but not absent. The riders gather. Eomer returns in defiance of his exile, bringing his Eored. Eowyn sharpens her sword in secret. As Rohan musters, Minas Tirith endures. The Balrog of Rhûn hammers at the walls. Its whip lashes, tearing chunks of stone. The gate shudders under blows. Orcs swarm, ladders clatter. Gandalf rides along the walls, staff blazing, driving back Nazgul. His white light pushes against the red of the Balrog, the two forces of fire in opposition. At one point, the Balrog turns its gaze upon him. They regard each other across the battlefield. A Maiar of light, robed in grey, now turned white, and a Maiar of fire, cloaked in shadow. In another world, Gandalf faced one of their kind. In Moria, fell, rose again. Here, that confrontation comes upon the walls of Minas Tirith. The Balrog raises its whip. Gandalf raises his staff. The clash is not of weapons, but of wills. Heat slams into light. The air between them shimmers, twisting. Men on the walls stagger, shielding their eyes. Gandalf feels the weight of ancient fire pressing against him, trying to smother his light. He remembers the timeless halls, the music, the flame imperishable. He remembers why he came to Middle-earth, not to dominate, but to kindle. He does not seek to destroy the Balrog. He seeks to hold it. The Balrog roars, flames flaring higher. For a moment, the light flickers. Then, faintly, like a breeze through a furnace, another presence touches the battlefield. Far away in the west, beyond the sight of men, the Valar watch. They have long been distant from Middle-earth, leaving its fate to elves and men. Yet the rising of the Balrogs is a wound in their old work. They feel it keenly. They do not intervene directly. They will not break the world again, but they send strength. Gandalf's light steadies. The Balrog recoils, surprised. It has not felt such resistance since the War of Wrath. It steps back, just a pace. It is enough. Gondor's archers, seeing the demon hesitate, loose a volley at the orcs around it. The pressure on the wall eases slightly. The siege grinds on. At the same time, far to the north, the Balrog of the Iron Mountains moves. It has grown restless. Its lair is a furnace, its mountain hollowed out, its heat a beacon. Orcs and wargs and darker things gather around it, drawn to its power. Yet it is not content to sit and burn. It remembers the West. It remembers Beleriand, drowned now, where once it strode in Morgoth's hosts. It remembers elven cities and men's fortresses. It remembers Gondolin's fall. There is another elven city now, of a sort, Rivendell. The Balrog turns south and west, its steps shaking the ground. In Rivendell, Elrond feels a chill, though the air is mild. He stands on a balcony, looking north. Something comes, he says. Arwen, beside him, follows his gaze. From the Iron Hills, she asks. Beyond, he says. Older than those dwarven halls. He thinks of the Fellowship, scattered now. He thinks of Frodo and Sam, somewhere in the wild with the ring. He thinks of Aragorn, walking the paths of the dead, perhaps, or riding with Rohan. He wonders if Rivendell will stand long enough to see their return. The Balrog's path will not be swift. It is far, and the world is wide. But it moves, and with each step, the earth shivers. In Mordor, Sauron watches all this with greedy eyes. He sees the Balrog at Minas Tirith clashing with Gandalf. He sees the one in the Iron Mountains marching. He sees Durin's Bane in Moria, restless, its smoke darkening the sky over the misty mountains. He considers. If the Balrogs break Gondor, if Rivendell falls, if Lorien burns, his work will be easier. Yet he also sees a danger. The Balrogs care nothing for his designs. If left unchecked, they might burn even what he would rule. He reaches again toward them with his will, stronger now that the ring draws nearer. He sends not images of alliance this time, but of hierarchy. Himself as Morgoth's heir, his eye as a new dark sun, his armies as extensions of their old war. The Balrog at Minas Tirith feels the pressure. For a moment, as it clashes with Gandalf's light, it sees, in its mind's eye, the Iron Crown. The Thangorodrim peaks, the black throne of Angband. It hears Morgoth's voice. It roars, more in fury than in obedience. It is torn. Gandalf feels the hesitation. You are bound to a master that is gone, he says, though the Balrog cannot understand his words. You serve only ashes. He pushes with his staff, light flaring. The Balrog staggers back another step. Its foot cracks the stone of the Pelennor. At that moment, a horn sounds. From the north, over the rise, the riders of Rohan appear, their spears glittering, their banners streaming. Theoden rides at their head, his hair white in the sun. As in the other history, they charge, their cry filling the air. Death! Their horses fear the Balrog, but they fear their king's voice more. They plunge into the orc ranks, trampling, cutting. The Balrog turns, drawn by this new movement. It swings its whip, catching a line of riders. Horses scream, men fall, armor melts. Theoden sees it. He knows he cannot fight it. He can barely look at it without his eyes watering. Yet he also sees that his men falter when they look upon it. Their charge breaks around that pillar of fire. He makes a choice. Orlingas! He cries. With me! He turns his horse not toward the orcs, but toward the Balrog. Eomer shouts in horror, Uncle! No! But Theoden rides, Snowmane's hooves pounding. The Balrog watches him come, amused. A single man on a single horse against its ancient might. Theoden raises his sword. For Rohan! He cries. For Gondor! He does not reach the Balrog. The heat is too great. Snowmane stumbles, shrieking, collapsing. Theoden is thrown, tumbling across the scorched ground. He lies still. The Balrog laughs, a sound like a collapsing tower. Yet Theoden's charge has not been in vain. The riders, seeing their king fall before the demon, do not break. They surge forward with a fury that borders on madness. They do not try to strike the Balrog itself. They hurl their spears at its feet, at the orcs around it, at the siege engines it protects. They carve a path through Sauron's host, disrupting its formations. The Balrog, turning to swat them, exposes its back to the walls. Gandalf seizes the moment. He calls upon all his strength, upon every memory of the West, upon every flicker of courage he has seen in men and hobbits and dwarves. His staff blazes like a star. He sends a lance of light at the Balrog's back. It strikes. The Balrog roars, stumbling. For the first time in the Third Age, it feels pain more than annoyance. Its flames gutter, just a little. The Nazgûl shriek, feeling a kindred darkness wounded. In that instant, on the slopes of Mount Doom, Frodo stands at the crack of doom, the ring in his hand. Sam is beside him, panting, bloodied, his eyes wide. "Go on, Mr. Frodo," he says. "Throw it in." Frodo looks at the ring. It glows warmly in his palm. He hears whispers, promises. He sees, in his mind's eye, the Balrogs marching, cities burning, friends dying. "With this," a voice says, "you could stop them. You could command them. You could make the fire obey you." He hesitates. In another history, he claims the ring, putting it on. Here, the added terror of the Balrogs gives the ring a new temptation. Not just power, but the promise to end a greater fear. Sam sees his face change. "Frodo," he says softly, "do not listen." Frodo's hand trembles. Far away on the Pelennor, the Balrog of Rhûn rears, its flames flaring in pain. Gandalf's light presses. Rohan's horns sound. The White City stands, battered but unbroken. In the Iron Mountains, the northern Balrog marches, its steps shaking the roots of the world. In Moria, Durin's Bane stirs, smoke pouring from the mountain's peak. In Rivendell, Elrond feels the tremor and grips the rail of his balcony. The world hangs on a choice. Frodo closes his eyes. "Cannot," he whispers. "I cannot do this." He feels the ring's weight, the pull of its promise. He sees Sam's face, lined with dirt and tears, full of trust. He thinks of the Shire, of green hills and quiet mornings. He thinks of Gandalf's laughter, of Aragorn's steady hand, of Boromir's horn. He thinks of fire. He opens his eyes. "I will not be their master," he says. "I will not be his." With a cry that is half despair, half release, he steps forward and casts the ring into the fire. The world shudders. In Mordor, Sauron screams, a sound without voice, a tearing in the air. The eye flares, then collapses. Barad-dûr cracks, its towers falling. On the Pelennor, the Nazgûl wail and vanish, their forms torn apart. Orcs falter, dropping weapons, clutching their heads. The Balrog of Rhûn staggers. The bond it had begun to feel faintly to Sauron's will snaps. The images of Angband and the Iron Crown vanish. It is alone in its fire again. It roars, not in pain, but in rage. Its flames flare, then flicker. For the ring's unmaking is not merely the fall of Sauron. It is a release of a power bound up in the world since the Second Age. It sends a shock through every work of shadow that drew upon that power. The Balrogs are older than the ring, older than Sauron's forging. They are of the first corruption, not the second, yet even they feel the tremor. The Balrog of Rune's sword of fire gutters, its whip's flames dim. For a moment, its form wavers, shadow flickering. Gandalf feels it. "Now!" he cries. He pours his light into that flicker, widening it. The Balrog screams. Its body, a knot of shadow and flame, begins to unravel. Fire pours from it, not in controlled whips and blades, but in a wild fountain. Its shadow stretches, thins. With a final, terrible cry, it collapses inward, then explodes outward in a blast of heat and light. Men on the walls shield their faces. Horses rear. Orcs are flung to the ground. When the glare fades, there is a crater where the Balrog stood, its edges fused to glass. Smoke rises, thin and grey. The Balrog of Rhûn is gone. Far to the north, the Balrog of the Iron Mountains stumbles. It has been marching, slow and relentless, its path carving a line of scorched earth. When the ring falls, it feels a wrench, as if a chain it did not know it bore has been cut. It stops. For a moment, its flames dim. Its thoughts, always a low, steady burn of hunger and memory, falter. It remembers the timeless halls, a brief, distant memory, almost extinguished. It remembers the music. It remembers a choice long ago to follow Morgoth's discord. It feels, faintly, a hand it has not felt in ages. Not Sauron's, but another. Mandos does not speak. Varda does not shine. Yet the Valar's attention brushes the Balrog's mind, just for a heartbeat. It roars, shaking off the touch. It does not repent. It does not turn back. But it steps slow. In Moria, Durin's bane rears, flames flaring. The mountain trembles. Rocks fall. The great hall collapses further. Orcs flee, shrieking. The Balrog feels the rings fall like a stone dropped into a deep pool. Ripples spread through the earth. Its connection to Sauron, faint but present, breaks. It is free. It had never been fully bound, but Sauron's rise had been a tide it could ride. Now the tide recedes, leaving it exposed on the shore. It looks up, through rock and earth, toward the sky it cannot see. It remembers stars. In Rivendell, Elrond feels the tremor pass. He feels Sauron's fall. He also feels something else, a loosening in the fabric of the world. The Balrogs are not gone. The fall of the ring has wounded them, shaken them, but it has not unmade them. They are of an older evil. They will not pass so easily, yet they are diminished. In Minas Tirith, as the orcs scatter and the men of Gondor and Rohan press their advantage, Gandalf stands at the edge of the Balrog's crater, staff in hand. He feels the heat still radiating from the fused glass. He looks up at the sky, where the clouds are thinning, revealing a pale sun. "One," he says softly. "One is gone." Pippin, standing beside him, swallows. "How many left?" he asks. Gandalf doesn't answer at once. "At least 3, he says finally. "Moria, the Iron Mountains, Rhune's deeps, perhaps more, in places we do not know." Pippin's shoulders slump. "So, it is not over," he says. "No," Gandalf says. "The war against Sauron is over. The war against fire is not." The immediate aftermath of Sauron's fall is a strange mixture of relief and dread. In Gondor, the people cheer, weep, embrace. The shadow has lifted. The Nazgûl are gone. The eye no longer burns in the east. Yet the crater on the Pelennor smokes, a reminder that some shadows cast their own light. Theoden lies dead, as in the other history. Éowyn and Merry have slain the Witch King, their courage undimmed. Aragorn has come, healing the sick with kingsfoil, his hands the hands of a healer. He stands now upon the walls, looking east and north. "The ring is gone," he says to Gandalf. "Sauron is fallen. Yet you do not smile." Gandalf's eyes are on the horizon, where the faintest red glow still stains the northern sky. "The age of the ring is ended," he says. "The age of men begins. But men will inherit not a clean slate, but a scarred one." He points north. The Balrogs remain. Aragorn follows his gaze. "Can we fight them?" he asks. "Perhaps," Gandalf says, "with wisdom, with patience. Not as we fought Sauron. They are not a single will, but several. They may quarrel. They may sleep again." He looks at Aragorn. "You will have to be more than a walking," he says. "You will have to be a steward of a wounded land." In the north, the Balrog of the Iron Mountains, slowed by the shock of the ring's fall, reaches the edge of the greenwood. Legolas, returning to his father's halls after the war, sees the sky redden. "It comes," he says. Thranduil stands beside him, his face grim. "We have long kept the darkness of Dol Guldur at bay," he says. "Now a darker fire approaches. Elves, skilled with bow and blade, prepare. They know they cannot slay a Balrog with arrows, but they can harry it, slow it, perhaps turn it aside." The Balrog enters the wood. Trees ignite. The spiders flee, chittering in terror. The very air burns. Yet the greenwood is not without its own deep strength. Roots run far. Waters flow hidden. The earth itself resists in its slow, patient way. The Balrog's flames do not spread as easily here as they did on open plains. The damp soil steams. The old trees crack but do not fall all at once. Elves strike from the shadows, arrows hissing. They aim not at the Balrog's body, but at its footing, at the rocks it steps on, at the trees above it. They trigger landslides, falling trunks, sudden pits. They cannot stop it, but they can turn it. Slowly, grudgingly, the Balrog veers west, away from Thranduil's halls, toward the misty mountains. It remembers Moria. Durin's bane, sensing its kin's approach, stirs more violently. The smoke from Caradhras thickens. The tremors grow. In Lorien, Galadriel feels it. "Their paths converge," she says. "If they meet." Gandalf, now returned to the north after the war, stands with her beneath the Malorns. "If they meet," he says, "they may fight, or they may join forces. Either way, the mountains will suffer." He looks at her. "You could leave," he says. "Sail west. You have earned your rest." Galadriel's eyes are distant. "I have long resisted the call of the West," she says. "I stayed to oppose Sauron. Now he is gone, yet the world still burns." She touches the soil with her bare hand. "I will not abandon it while these fires walk," she says. In Rivendell, Elrond makes a different choice. He has seen many ages. He has watched kingdoms rise and fall. He has fought in wars against Morgoth and Sauron. He is tired. He looks at his daughter. "Arwen," he says, "if you choose to stay, you will stay in a world that may burn. The Balrogs are not like Sauron. They will not negotiate. They will not be appeased. They will either sleep again or they will roam." Arwen looks at him, then at Aragorn, now King Elessar, who has come to Rivendell to escort her to Minas Tirith. "I know," she says, "and still I choose." Her choice is heavier in this world, but no less firm. The Balrog of the Iron Mountains reaches the high pass. It looks down into the vale where once lay Imladris, hidden and safe. Now, though still fair, Rivendell is more exposed. The earth around it has shifted, some of its secret paths altered by tremors. Elrond stands at the edge of his valley, staff in hand. He has no ring of power now. Vilias might have faded with the one. He is diminished, as all the elves are, yet he stands. The Balrog looks down at him, amused. a single elf, old and weary, against its ancient might. Behind Elrond, elves string bows, murmur spells. Prepare. The Balrog lifts its whip. Before it can strike, the mountain shakes. Durin's Bane, sensing its kin so near, has forced its way up through new cracks in the rock. It emerges on a ridge above, its flames flaring, its roar echoing. The two Balrogs face each other across the valley. For a moment, the world holds its breath. They are kin, but they are not comrades. They are shards of Morgoth's will, each a piece of his original defiance. But that will is broken now, scattered. They remember dimly hierarchy and order under their master. They feel now only rivalry. The Balrog of the Iron Mountains roars, its flames flaring blue at the edges. Durin's Bane answers, its shadow wings spreading wide. They clash. Fire meets fire. Shadow tears at shadow. The air between them becomes a furnace. Rocks melt. The sky above them reddens. Elrond staggers as the ground heaves. Elves cling to trees, to rocks, to each other. The Balrogs' battle is not like the wars of men. It is more like a storm, a natural disaster, terrible and impersonal. They strike not to conquer, but to destroy. Their whips crack, carving gashes in the mountainside. Their swords of fire meet with a sound like thunder. Lava seeps from new fissures. Snow on distant peaks flashes to steam. Rivendell trembles. Elrond knows that if the valley collapses, it will bury his people. He cannot fight the Balrogs directly. He can, perhaps, guide the collapse. He raises his staff. Children of Ilúvatar, he calls, not to the Balrogs, but to the stones, to the trees, to the river. Remember the music. Remember your place. Do not fall where they would have you fall. It is a desperate, half-mad act, born of long years and deep lore. The valley listens. When a great chunk of cliff gives way under the Balrogs' blows, it does not fall straight down into Rivendell. It twists, breaks, falls in smaller pieces. The Bruinen rises in a sudden surge, its waters foaming white, cushioning some of the rockfall. Still, the damage is great. Houses crack, bridges fall. Elves are buried, some saved, some not. The Balrogs, locked in combat, do not notice. Their struggle carries them along the ridge, away from Rivendell toward the higher peaks. They tear a scar across the misty mountains, a path of glass and ash. In Lorien, Galadriel feels the tremor of their passage. It will not hold, she says. The mountains will break. Gandalf nods. We must prepare to move people, he says. Dwarves, men, elves. The lands near the misty mountains will not be safe for a long time. The breaking of the Fellowship has led to the breaking of the world's spine. In Moria, Durin's Bane and the northern Balrogs' battle sends shockwaves through the deeps. Tunnels collapse. Orcs die in droves. Ancient works of dwarves and elves crumble. At one point, their clash opens a chasm that runs from the depths of Moria to the surface, a jagged wound in the mountain. Light pours down for the first time in ages into halls that have known only darkness. For a heartbeat, as sunlight touches its flames, Durin's Bane pauses. It remembers Lorelei and Telperion. It remembers the light of the two trees, long destroyed. It remembers, faintly, a time before it wrapped itself in shadow. Then the memory passes. Burned away by its own fire, the battle rages on. It does not end with a clear victor. After days of struggle, of mountains cracking and valleys shaking, the two Balrogs fall together into a newly opened abyss. Their flames roar, then vanish into the dark. The chasm closes above them, rock grinding on rock. The misty mountains are left shattered. New peaks rise where old ones fell. Valleys are choked with rubble. Rivers change course. Rivendell is half ruined, but not destroyed. Its people, under Elrond's guidance, have survived, though many have died. Elrond stands on a broken terrace, looking at the altered landscape. "We have withstood Balrogs twice now," he says softly. "Once in Gondolin, once here. Both times the price was high." Arwen stands beside him, her face pale. "Will they rise again?" she asks. "I do not know," he says. "They have fallen deep. Perhaps they will sleep. Perhaps they will claw their way back up in another age when men have forgotten even Sauron's name." He looks west. "I will not be here to see it," he says. He makes his decision. He will sail. In Moria, Durin's Banes, Lair is a chaos of broken stone and cooling lava. Orcs that survived flee, seeking new masters. The great halls are choked with dust. The Balrog's presence, once a constant oppressive heat, is gone. Yet deep, deep below, in caverns untouched even by this cataclysm, something stirs. Not a Balrog, something smaller but akin. A spark that never fully woke, now nudged by the passing of its greater kin. It flickers, then settles. Not yet. In the east, under the Sea of Rhûn, the fourth Balrog, which had barely begun to rise, feels the rings fall and the death of its kin. It retreats, curling in on itself, smothering its own flames. It is not fear that drives it, but a kind of animal caution. The world above is too unstable. It will wait. In Gondor, years pass. Aragorn rules wisely, as in the other history. He rebuilds Minas Tirith, repairs the Pelennor, strengthens the Ramas. He sends aid to Ithilien, where Faramir and Éowyn make a green land of healing, though some patches of earth remain stubbornly scorched. He also sends envoys north to help rebuild Dale and Erebor, to check on Rivendell and the Shire. He knows that the scars of the Balrog's passage will shape trade routes, migrations, politics. The misty mountains, once a barrier but a known one, are now a chaotic range of broken peaks and new chasms. Old passes are gone. New ones are treacherous. Moria is a ruin atop a ruin. Dwarves debate. Some say they should reclaim Khazad-dûm now, while the Balrog is gone. Others argue that the mountain is too unstable, that the deeps are too dangerous. Gimli, now Lord of the Glittering Caves, visits the ruins of Moria once, standing at the edge of the new chasm that cuts through the old hall. He drops a stone. He never hears it hit. "This is not for us," he says. "Not yet. Perhaps not ever." Legolas, beside him, nods. "The world is changing," he says. "Forests will grow where mountains fell. Rivers will carve new paths. New songs will be sung." He looks at Gimli. "We will make some of those songs," he says. "In Ithilien, in the Glittering Caves, perhaps even in lands we have not seen. Hobbits in the Shire feel the tremors less and less as years pass. The great quakes are over. The red glows on the horizon are gone. The world seems calmer. Yet in some places, the earth is not as it was. Farmer Cotton's field by the water has a patch where nothing grows, no matter how he tills it. He shakes his head, muttering about bad soil. Children dare each other to go stand in the bare patch at night. They say you can feel a faint warmth there if you stand very still. Sam Gamgee, now Maiar, visits once. He stands on the bare earth, feeling nothing at first. Then, faintly, deep down, he feels a slow, patient throb, like a heart beating in sleep. He shivers. "Come away, Eleanor," he says to his daughter, who has been poking at the ground with a stick. This is no place for playing. He does not tell her why. In Valinor, on the shores of the Blessed Realm, Elrond and Galadriel and Gandalf stand together, looking east. They have left Middle-earth, their work there as stewards of the Third Age done. They have seen Sauron fall, the ring unmade, the Balrogs wounded, yet their eyes are not entirely at peace. The music was marred, Gandalf says. We did what we could to mend it, but some notes will always carry that discord. Galadriel's gaze is far away. The Balrogs are not just monsters, she says. They are choices made long ago that still echo. Every time someone chooses dominion over harmony, a little of their fire stirs. Elrond nods. And yet, he says, every time someone like Frodo chooses to cast away power, a little of their fire dies. They fall silent. Across the sea, in Middle-earth, an old hobbit sits in a garden, watching the sunset. Sam's hair is white, his hands gnarled. He hears the laughter of his grandchildren behind him, the clatter of dishes from the kitchen. He looks west, as Frodo once did. He thinks of fire. He remembers the light of Galadriel's file in Shelob's lair. He remembers the red glare of Mount Doom. He remembers faintly the distant glow on the horizon when the Balrog of Rhûn walked. The world is peaceful now in his little corner. The Shire has healed from Saruman's brief despoiling. The party tree grows again. The fields are green. Yet sometimes on very still nights, he feels a faint tremor under his feet, so slight that he could almost dismiss it as his own old bones creaking. He wonders if deep down something still turns in its sleep. He knows that his time is near. He has been told that he may sail west to see Frodo and Gandalf and the others. He thinks he will. Before he goes, he walks once to the edge of the Shire, to a small hill where he can see, far off, the faint line of the misty mountains, jagged and broken against the sky. He stands there at dusk, the air cool, the grass soft under his feet. He imagines for a moment what it would have been like if Frodo had failed, if the Balrogs had marched unchecked, if the world had burned. He shudders. Then he smiles a little sadly. We did what we could, he says softly. That will have to be enough. He turns back toward home, the light fading behind him. Far to the east, under the Sea of Rhûn, in a cavern of black glass and basalt, a coal glows faintly in the dark. It pulses, slow and deep, like a breath drawn in and held. Above, the waters are calm. The stars shine. Men fish, elves sing, dwarves delve, hobbits sleep. The coal's glow dims, then brightens, then dims again. It does not wake. Not yet. On a quiet night in the Fourth Age, in a small village in Gondor's newly reclaimed eastern lands, a child wakes from a dream of fire. He goes to the window, heart pounding, and looks out. The sky is clear, full of stars. He sees no red glows, no smoke, no shadows with wings. He stands there for a long time, listening. The earth is still. He goes back to bed, the image of his dream already fading. Far below his house, deeper than any well, deeper than any mine, the world's old wounds lie closed, but not forgotten. In the silence of the deep, where even the Valar's song is a distant murmur, something that was once a Maiar of fire and pride lies curled in stone, its flames banked, its will a smouldering ember. It dreams of a crown of iron, of towers of smoke, of a world lit only by fire. In its dream, it walks again. In the waking world, a small tremor passes through the rock, so slight that no one on the surface feels it. The ember's glow brightens, just a little. Then, as if remembering something, a hobbit's hand casting away a ring, a wizard's light on a storm-dark field, a king's choice to heal rather than conquer. It flickers. The glow fades. In the deep, the old fire turns over once, like a sleeper seeking a cooler place on the pillow of stone. The world above breathes. The child in Gondor dreams now of green fields instead of flames. The stars wheel overhead, and in the darkness under all things, the last echo of the Balrogs' rage curls in on itself and waits, patient as only stone and shadow can be, for a song it no longer quite remembers how to answer.